Welcome back, class. So, we were discussing structure, sign, and play in the discourse of the human sciences by Derrida. And today, I'll just give you an overview, a recap to the concept of sign that we were discussing in our structuralism class also. So, just have this in mind. The sign denotes. Just have this in mind. A sign denotes. A sign has two components to it, without which a sign cannot make meaning. I told you in the previous class, right? A sign has two components to it, signified by signifier, or signifier by signified. So a sign has two components to it. Only if it has these two components, like two sides of a sheet of paper, like two sides of a coin, a sign has its validity. A sign can make sense. It should have two sides to it. Please remember, a sign should have two sides, signifier and a signifier. Right? Now, Derrida talks about what is called a transcendental signifier. This is something revelatory. This is something of a revolution also in the history of the concept of structure. Remember, in the first paragraph, he talks about the word event or rupture. So there is what is called a rupture here, an event here, and it is revelatory. What is that? And this today we'll be discussing that the transcendental signifier. I told you a sign has two components to it: the signifier and the signified. So please don't, have an opinion that it is only for your classes. This is beyond that. It can change your perspective to life. It can change your perspective to literature. It can change your perspective to how we approach or engage with society, right? And a kind of an inclusive engagement with society, right? We get only when we think, right, in this particular way that Derrida asks us to. So, a sign has two components, and he says transcendental signifier. What is a transcendental signifier that Derrida talks about here? If I should go into that, let me, give you this particular illustration, right? The first one, right? The signifier. Then the image that comes to your mind. The first one is the signifier. Please remember the signifier is the letter, right? D-E-E-R, the letter. And the second one is the image that comes to your mind when D-E-E-R, dear, is written. The image that comes to your mind. And these two denote what is called the sign. See how a sign is composed of these two. Without that, there is no sign, right? So now you understand the meaning of, right, the signified. Just look at the signified below. You have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 qualities there. The first signified that comes to your mind, I repeat, the first signified that comes to your mind when D-E-E-R is spelled out or written is it should be an animal. Isn't it? This is the image that comes to your mind. Secondly, it is a four-legged animal. That's the image that comes to your mind. Thirdly, right, it has a lot of qualities. The moment the word deer comes to your mind, maybe the tiger and the deer, or the deer as an animal filled with grace, charm, a whole lot of told in the previous class connotations, not denotations. A whole lot of connotations come up your mind the moment you think of the very word dear. What's that? The words are given there: grace, compassion, gentleness, or meekness, or beauty, or a whole lot of things. So now this is the signified. This is the realm of the signified. What was the signifier? D-E-E-R. What is the signified? A whole lot of signifieds are there, isn't it? It's a four-legged animal. It is an animal, four-legged. Then it has grace. compassion, gentleness, meekness, beauty, a whole lot of qualities come. So what is the signified for the signifier? There are a whole lot of signifiers, isn't it? That's what Derrida says. The meaning of a word is not fixed. The meaning of any word for that matter is not fixed. It is structured, layers and layers of meanings will be, that is why he uses the word deference. Deference means the meaning is endlessly postponed. The meaning of a word is endlessly continues to be postponed. What I get is like the beautiful illustration I must have given you when you were in the first year, like a beautiful river, right? Keeps flowing down. Imagine the Kaveri River. It originates from the Kurg district in Karnataka, right? So from there, the Kaveri comes down. So what happens is someone along the way, he or she takes a scoop of water, a scoop full of, handful of water, like from the river Kaveri, and she says, hey, I've got the Kaveri in my hands. She's right. She's also wrong. She may be right. She may also be wrong. The reason is, right, the Kaveri continues to flow, continues to flow. What I have got in my hand is the meaning that I wanted to get. So, deer, what was the meaning I wanted to get? It's a four-legged animal. Or sometimes when you think of deer, the hundreds of deer that you find in MCC campus, our campus, immediately it comes to your mind. Some of you must have also fed the deer with your own hands. If you are very graceful with the deer, very friendly, and especially those of you in the halls must have done it. They come to you and they take food from you. So a whole lot of connotations come up. The moment the very word deer strikes you, a whole lot of connotations come up. But I take what I intend to take, the meaning that I want to take. So it's a four-legged animal, okay. Or it's a graceful being, okay. It is gentle, okay. It reminds me of mythology, okay, great. Anything, but the meaning that you take is yours. So where is the meaning? Derrida says the meaning differs and differs, D-E-F-E-R. Differ means, right, postponed. Endlessly, it keeps getting postponed. That is what Derrida says. Please remember this. There is no fixed signified for the signifier. It keeps changing. It keeps getting postponed. Right? So, coming to the next word, next concept. All these slides I prepared it. Right? So, now, again, one more illustration for you. Right? The word R-E-D or the letters R-E-D in the word red. The letters, 3 letters in the word R-E-D. The moment it is written, what comes to your mind? If I say red, there is a battery company that says, give me red. So what comes to your mind? The color comes to your mind. The image in the mind, that is the signified. Right? What comes to your mind? The image in the mind, the color, R-E-D. When I write B-L-U-E, what comes to your mind? The color blue comes to your mind. Here, the color, what is called red comes to your mind. The color red comes to your mind. That is the signified. And, what are the possible connotations that you'll get when you think about red? If you are regular at the traffic junction, the word red means immediately, oh God, I should stop. If you belong to a particular party, the word red means that it associates with that particular party. And the word red could also mean a symbol of love, sacrifice, especially the red rose. Right? Red rose usually associated with love and sacrifice, unconditional love. The Nightingale and the Rose, Oscar Wilde's short story, you'll find that. Right? My love is a red rose, red rose. Or, it could also symbolize violence. On a pejorative label, right? Some districts or some places, in some parts of the world are called red light districts or red light areas. Right? pejorative label, a negative label comes to the word red. And sometimes the word red, he was red with anger, she was red with anger. It means, see the various connotations that come up with one signifier. What is the signifier? R-E-D. What is the signifier? Not one. Layers and layers of signified you get for this particular signifier, isn't it? So how can there be one signified? Asks Derrida. This is exactly his logic that he tells us in this wonderful essay. It was originally, if I can go back and tell you, it was originally a talk that he gave, a lecture that he gave on 21st October 1966 at Johns Hopkins University. Right, that's why I've given it there. You can see it. And today, in 2020, someone wants to join. Just admit, yeah. So, in this academic class, on 11th November, right, 11th or today is the 10th, right? Yeah. Today, we discuss this particular, lecture of Derrida, a very significant lecture, a very important lecture that has changed our perspective. Basically or personally, I was also heavily influenced by this lecture for many reasons because it changed my perspective. Please remember, human subjectivity. You can write it down, you can note it down, you can have a right mark of it. Human subjectivity is constructed. I repeat, human subjectivity is constructed by three things. Human subjectivity, I repeat, is constructed. That is, I'll give you that. Human subjectivity is constructed. This is a human, right? Imagine this is a human. And this human, her subjectivity, his subjectivity is constructed by three things, says theory. Human subjectivity, I repeat, is constructed, is not natural. Right? We are natural beings, right? Human beings are, but we are constructed as subjects by three things. This has a transformative appeal on us, basically, right? What is that? Human subjectivity is constructed by, the first one is language. Language constructs the human subject, right? Language constructs the human subject. It makes you and me a subject. Who am I? I'm Rufus. Rufus. Who says that? Language says that. I don't say that. Language has already made me a subject. What are you doing? I'm teaching. 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 Who says that? Language says that. This was the concept propounded by Jacques Lacan, L-A-C-A-N. You and I and we and everything around us is constructed by language. So we are all slaves to language. Your identity is constructed, your subjectivity is constructed by what? By language, says Lacan. Second one, human subjectivity. Right? Human subjectivity is constructed by discourse. Discourse. This is the second point. Please remember, first one I said human subjectivity is constructed by language, says Lacan. Human subjectivity is constructed. Human subjectivity is constructed by discourse, says Foucault, Michel Foucault. Right? So human subjectivity is constructed by discourse. In this particular lecture also that is given to us, we found when language becomes discourse, isn't it a very important revelation, a very emancipatory revelation also. Discourse is liberated, right? Like theory. So, right, we are constructed, our subjectivity, we are subjects. Who says that? Discourse says. And who says discourse? Foucault, right? Michel Foucault. And thirdly, we are subject, we undergo subjectivity based on what is called ideology, right? So the first one is language. Human subjectivity is constructed by language. Human subjectivity is constructed by discourse, says Foucault. Third one, human subjectivity is constructed by ideology, says Althusser. Louis Althusser, right? Again, he was a guru of Foucault. Right? Ideological state apparatus. We all must have known that, right? Must have studied that. So, this human subject, right, is a construct. Can you imagine that? I am a construct. Ideology conditions me. It gives me a religion. It gives me a caste. It gives me a community. It gives me a state. It gives me a nation. How? Through language. See the power of language. That is why, right? Language is political. Language is always connected with power because language constructs you and me and we and everyone in this planet. We are constructed by language. So, where is the real? If we are constructed, where is the real? Lacan. Last year we had a wonderful student of ours who was very much interested in Lacan after our theory classes. Then, he wanted to know more about Lacan, and I suggested one particular book by Catherine Belsey. He bought that book, right? The title of the book is called Culture and the Real. I think I had it here. Culture and the Real by Catherine Belsey, right? Culture and the Real. The real. So where is the real? If we are constructs by language, where is the real? And Lacan says the moment the child gets access to the symbolic. Symbolic means what, right? The pre-symbolic order is this, right? When the kid does not have any access to any symbol, A or B, doesn't mean anything. But the moment the child gets access to what is called the symbolic order, what is the symbolic order? The order of language, Amma. When she says Amma, it is a symbol. Please remember it is a symbol. When she says Amma, immediately she finds that the whole reality changes. Someone immediately looks at her and asks, what do you want, my dear kid? Then the child is excited. I'm using a symbol, and the symbol has the power to sway or to construct reality for me. So let me try another word. Appa. The kid, the baby says. Immediately Appa. Right? From there, he comes and looks at the kid and he says, hey, my dear kid, what do you want? Now, the kid finds that the reality is conditioned or constructed by symbols. Symbols, like words. He doesn't know they are words. They are symbols for our sake. Amma is a symbol standing for somebody else. The child now accesses or enters a beautiful order, Lacan says, and that is called the symbolic order. I repeat, now when the child enters this order, what is this order? The power to sway people, the power to attract people or objects or things based on a symbol, on a word. When I say, choo choo choo, the little pup in my house comes near me. When I say Ginny, the little dog, she immediately comes near me. The power of language to condition reality. That's why we discussed, remember, in one of our previous classes, David Crystal talks about the 7 functions of language. And one function is, right, he talks about the power of sound and how it conditions reality. At the wedding ceremony that is held, right, what happens is the priest asks the bride and the bridegroom, vice versa, respectively. What does he ask? Right? The priest, the first thing she will ask the bride or the bridegroom is, right? Do you intend to take for yourself this person as your lawfully, legally wedded dash? So immediately what happens is either of them, they have to say, I do. In Jaina, you find the famous example, no? For the first time in the whole entire history of the human race, it was broken. I admit the presence of an impediment, he says, and he walks in. So, I do. Just 2 words. After that, the whole reality is transformed. This is what Lacan says. Language is the symbolic order. You and I and every one of us get into the symbolic order. We access the symbolic order through language. So, without language, we are powerless. Our human subjectivity is conditioned, has already made us subjects. How? By language, then by discourse. Discourse is, a body of knowledge that is specific to a particular, locale, or, I'm just simplifying the whole thing for you. Idli is the discourse of Tamil Nadu. Chutney belongs to the food discourse. That is why they say colonial discourse. They say post-colonial discourse. They say imperial discourse, Eurocentric discourse. They say aboriginal discourse, feminist discourse, a body of thought that is specific to a particular domain, a particular field, a particular people, a particular society. So discourse is a more liberative word than language, says Derrida. Remember in the previous class we saw this is the realm when language becomes discourse. So how is human subjectivity conditioned? Language. Who am I? Right? I'm Dr. Rufus. Who said language? So where is the real? This is Lacan's question. Where is the real? The real, if it is conditioned by the symbolic order, if the real is conditioned by the symbolic order, that means where is the real? The real is beyond the symbolic, he says, beyond, outside the symbolic. When the child did not access the symbolic, the pre-symbolic, that is the real. But he says we lose connection with the real till the end of our lives, but the moment we access the symbolic. So what is the real? I'll just give you an example, right? An example that Lacan tells. Hunger or thirst that we get is instinctual, is spontaneous, is natural. The hunger that you get is real. But how does it translate? How does it translate or modify itself when it comes to the symbolic? You will ask, Amma, I am hungry. So the real is outside the symbolic, is instinctual, it's natural, but we have symbolic words to translate the basic instinctual urges in us. Thirst, for example. This natural, spontaneous, it's the real. But when it translates into the symbol, we ask, I'm thirsty, I need some W-A-T-E-R. And the same thing Althusser also tells us, Louis Althusser. He says, ideology conditions us. We are all products of some ideology or the other. It could be a dominant ideology, it could be an emergent ideology, it could be anything, but we are all products of an ideology. Each of us. Bakhtin, Mikhail Bakhtin uses a beautiful word for that. Exotropy. Exotropy means outsideness. We are always outside. Same like Lacan says. Both of them almost, they were in the same contemporaries, but one was not conscious of what the other was doing, although they were running on similar tracks. This is what Bhaktin also says, exotopy. Exotopy means outsidedness. Remember in Imaginary Homelands, the beautiful essay, which is also part of the beautiful book titled Imaginary Homelands by Salman Rushdie. In that particular essay on Imaginary Homelands, he says, Rushdie, he talks about outsidedness. Have you ever experienced this concept of outsidedness? Can you ever relate to this concept of outsidedness? What is outsidedness that Bhaktin talks about? Exotopy. Exo means out. Ex means out. But X principle. But eccentricity or center, outside the center. Can you ever step outside of yourself and look at yourself? Lacan says, our innermost intimate humanity within us is always outside of ourselves. The innermost intimate me, the innermost intimate human being that I call me, is always outside of myself because I'm constructed. My identity is constructed. Tagore says no in where the mind is without fear, where knowledge is free, where the world has not been broken up into fragments by narrow domestic walls. What are these domestic walls? These three, if I can allude to that. Language is the domestic wall that constructs me. I say my language is the best. A person from Telangana or Andhra would say my language is the best. A person from the Hindi belt would say my language is the best. A person from the northeast, a Mizo, would say my language is the best. You ask the Aborigines, my language is the best. Here he says, yes, your language is the best for you. My language is the best for me. His language is the best for him. Her language is the best for her. Because every utterance is subjective. I'll just, now, right? We saw the layers and layers of signify that, that connotes with a particular three-letter word or ed. Now, this will help us understand, right? This particular paragraph, in that particular essay that I just paraphrased it for you here, the absence of the transcendental signified equals play. Play means what? Free play. Free play means where there is no hierarchy. Please remember, Derrida is against the conception of a binary because wherever there is a binary, there is power, there is hierarchy, there is inequality. One will always be relegated to the bottom and one will always have an upper stance. So when there is a hierarchy, there is power. Where there is power, there is also resistance to that power. So here he talks about blurring or erasing the binaries. How do you erase the binaries? When you think about the concept of a transcendental signified is no more, the boundaries are erased. So the absence of the transcendental signified, says Derrida. Please remember this concept for life, not for your exams alone, please. This will have a great effect on the way we look at a particular poem, a particular text, a particular human being, right? The capacity to empathize in imaginary homelands, right? Salman Rushdie says, what does it mean to be an Indian outside of India? Outsidedness, the exotopy that Bhaktin tells us. What does it mean to be an Indian? Have you ever thought about that? An Indian who's living in Canada or the United States or in Malaysia, thinking about India or looking at India, what will be the perspective? Outsidedness. And that is exactly, right, what we find here. Outsidedness in the sense, decentered. When I look at things from my selfish perspective, I will always value or cherish only mine. I will not be able to look at what others have to offer. So here, the absence of the transcendental signifier means, I'll go to the previous slide here. He says, Derrida says, there is not one particular signified. There is not one particular signified. One signified means, for example, if I say truth, means this. Most of us normally spontaneously do that. Right? Theory says, I don't say that, please don't mistake me. Theory says, when you say this is the truth, it is truth for you, good. It is good truth for you, hats off to you. But that may not be the truth for another person from another part of the world. So you have no right to impose your truth on somebody else. Because, meaning is continuously in a state of flux. So for truth, substitute red for the word truth. And now you get here whatever you wanted. Religion, it could be religion, it could be a caste, it could be a community. So truth means this for you. But at the same time, please remember, there are a whole lot of signifieds that come along with the concept of truth. So where is truth? This is where Derrida gives us a very liberative thought. When I try to impose my truth on another person, saying, this is the truth, that is like being very biased, prejudiced. This is the language that you have to study. Again, imposition. So, normatives, basic givens. Please read Peter Barry. He says in the beginning of the book, in beginning theory, right, some of the basic givens of our life, the normatives that are given in our life, are merely constructs. So I believe my language is the best. Truth means this language. Good. But don't belittle another person because they have another truth. For me, wearing a ring on my ring finger has a lot of truth connects with that. Has a lot of meaning, value associated with that. You have no power to come and tell me this is not right. This is not good. You have no power to tell me that, no right to tell me that. The same applies to anyone. That person has a particular truth. She celebrates her language. She celebrates her festival. You can't say this is not a good festival. Truth, that famous essay, by Francis Bacon, what is truth? Now you can beautifully connect with Nietzsche's definition of truth as armies and metaphors. What is truth but an army, mobile army of metaphors and metonymies, he says. One standing for the other, for the other, for the other, for the other. So red, right? Imagine the color red. Stands for what? Here we saw, love. Metaphor. Next one, stop. Red sign. Red also stands for violence. Red also stands for danger. Red also stands for fire. Red also stands for anger. Red also stands for blood. So what is truth? What is the signifier that TRUTH gives us? It is continuously in a state of flux. It continuously keeps getting postponed. Right? So this was the moment when language invaded the universal problematic. The moment, please remember in the first paragraph he uses the word rupture or event. That's what he calls a moment. The moment when in the absence of a center, everything became discourse. Right? Please make a note of this paragraph. That's why I posted this into the PPT. Provided we can agree on the word, we can agree on the word. You understand? Discourse means agreement between us. Remember, Stanley Fish talks about interpretive communities. Benedict Anderson talks about imagined communities. So, provided we can agree on the word, on this word, that is to say, a system in which the central signified, the original or transcendental signified, is never absolutely present outside a system of differences. So that means right? There is no particular, meaning that could be called. This is the signified or the signifier red, right? There could be never be any particular signified for the letters RED. It keeps endlessly defer, DEFE, R, defer, deference, right? Uh, the absence of the transcendental signified extends the domain and the play of signification infinitely. Now you understand, right? It because there is no one meaning for the signified, the red, it gets postponed endlessly. Now look at that. Love or stop. Yesterday we saw the rose, no? The rose has a lot of significations. The rose could stand for love, the rose could stand for sacrifice, the rose could stand for anything that you and I, as part of a discursive apparatus, intended to be. Right? That's what he says. And a very simple question. If I show, right, 10 different people the same symbol and ask them what it means, I repeat, if I ask or if I show 10 different people the same symbol and ask them what it means, what's the symbol? The symbol of a candle, right? A burning candle. It's highly likely that I might possibly get 10 different answers in the streets. You must have seen those prank shows where they show a candle and ask, what does this mean to you? Do you think everyone will give the same answer? Some will say a candle loses nothing of its brightness by lighting another candle. Another person will say candle represents knowledge. Another person will say, hey, I'm reminded of John Donne. He talks about the taper, the candle. So, a candle is like a father or mother or parents or teachers. They sacrifice themselves but still keep burning for our sakes. A candle, so multiple significations happen here. The candle, the one word candle, the signifier, yes, the CANDLE, has a lot of meanings just from 10 different people. That means, where is meaning of candle? It keeps continuously getting postponed. And please read it once again this evening after you log out. Tomorrow, we'll continue from where we left off. If there are any questions, you can ask me this time. Thank you. Have a good day.
Thank you, sir.